Hi, everybody. Welcome to Equity.Guru. This is the Gauntlet video series where I, Chris Parry, take it to public company CEOs to ask some tough questions and see if they've got good answers. With me today, I've got Gary Thompson from Brixton Metals, which is BBB on your score sheets. Gary, welcome to the show. I'll start you off with a broad question that I ask almost every resource company CEO that I talk to. And I'm often surprised that there's not a good answer. If I'm walking down the Cambridge House or PDAC convention floor and I stop at your table, why are you more interesting than the 80 other companies along the same aisle?
Why are we more interesting? Well, I would say we have a unique opportunity in what I believe is still close to the bottom of the market. And when I say unique opportunity, we have, I think, close to the largest land position in Northwest British Columbia, which is, everybody knows, is a prolific exploration mining district in the Golden Triangle.
So having a large land position can be a positive, but also can be tough to locate the sweet spot. Are you confident that you've got what you need to get to not necessarily drilling for a decade, but getting to where you can progress?
Yeah, I think we have the targets. And the way we're looking at it is not only do we have the targets, we believe we have multiple mine development projects on one asset. I think that's the unique part about it. That we're not talking about we have one porphyry target. We have, I will say, many. I think we've identified like 14 targets. When I say targets, I mean, if it's not at least 2 kilometers long, it doesn't even rank. And some of our targets are 5, 6, 7, could be as much as 10 kilometers in strike. So those are the kinds of targets that we're after. And what we're looking for is, I mean, if you look at the future of mining, in my view, is block cave mining, right? It's surgically mining underground, big scale, basically high grade. And because the reason, if people don't know what block cave mining is, the beauty of it is, and it's actually shown to be more economic than open pit mining, but you don't have all the waste rock you need to deal with. If you've got a multi-billion ton deposit, where are you going to put 2 billion tons of waste material?
Right.
But if you don't have to do that, and you can mine, say, 500 million tons of high grade or 1 billion tons of high grade underground, you just have a lot less surface disturbance. So I think that's the future of mining. Yeah, let's face it, these targets are still relatively early. We only expanded our land position to, which is now just under 3,000 square kilometers. So if you figure out how big that is, it's a big area, 80 kilometer plus trend. So a lot of targets in there that we are just getting going on, so pretty early. There's 2 main targets that we're drilling on this year, and we hope to be drilling a third perhaps as well this season, but most of our 20,000 meter budget is going into 2 targets. One is called Camp Creek, which is looks like a large scale, was a blind porphyry target, and this is one of these block cave ideas that we have on the target. And the other one is the Trapper Gold target. So those 2 targets we think have pretty good potential, pretty good promise for development. But it is going to take a long time to drill this thing. We're operating in northern BC, which is seasonal. So there's nothing quick about building a mine.
For sure. I mean, obviously, there's been a few companies over the last few years that have decided to just go in small at where they know that they can be productive on a small scale and then follow the gold outwards. So I'm guessing that that's kind of where you're at with what you want to achieve here. Yeah,
I think you want to do that. I think ultimately,
just chase the gold instead of.
It's a good approach to. I think the way we look at it is like, well, what's the biggest potential we could have here? That's always great because you want to know what the biggest upside is, right?
Right.
But also to make economics at some point, the way I look at these things is I want things to happen in this mining cycle. Because I've lived through two major downturns in the mining cycle. I don't want to be having this conversation at the bottom of after the bottom of the next mining cycle. The same conversation. I'd like to be moved on and transacted and built something, or at least materially advanced it to to a point where it's looking like it's gonna make economics. That's the bottom line.
So gold in general, like generally when we find ourselves in a place of economic uncertainty, or let alone military uncertainty, gold goes through the roof. Not so much happening right now. Like, do you think that it's just a delay on the usual cycle, or is there something more happening that is changing the landscape?
From my perspective, you're right. Traditionally and historically, I think everybody would expect that inflation running super hot. I think the narrative coming out of the central banks is a false narrative, and the big banks that work the paper gold market and the paper silver markets and the futures are dictating the price. And when they had a nice big rally up to 2000, they just clobber it back down to short their gold down to it's basically taking profits off the market. So there's, in my view, it's should not be tolerated in the market. In fact, I think they should get rid of shorts altogether.
For that.
It would be my view, but I think there's competition, and Bitcoin has created the whole cryptocurrency market. If you look at the scale of the crypto market, it's quite large relative to the whole gold sector. I think you could put all the mining companies in the world together as $1 billion sector. So it's almost like mining's become a bit of a niche market when you're talking multi-trillion-dollar market cap companies. So it's an interesting niche market because it's the backbone of the economy, and it really drives. I think if anything that I've learned over this last little while is and you may have too, is the supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
Things that I didn't realize, or you may not have realized about the supply chain and where does stuff come from. And I'm always kind of blown away by certain things where, like, Canada is very, aren't we blessed here with an amazing abundance of natural resources? But then we import all these things from all over the world. It's like, why are we importing oil when we're sitting on one of the largest oil reserves in the world in our backyard? I don't understand that. Doesn't make any sense.
Sending out lumber and bringing it back as cut.
Yeah, send out the raw lumber and overpaying for products that we could make here better and employ Canadians.
Yeah. So
there's not enough of that, and those are external things that I think as a country we should change. But so there's a number of factors. But what I'm excited about in the sector now is we just came through a downturn. Like 2015 was the bottom of the mining market, and it was a long, deep downturn, the last one. And I think what's in front of us, it looks pretty good. You've got the decarbonization, electrification of civilization. All of those things are going to need metals, and a lot of them. Like, we don't have the metals we're going to need in the next 100 years. So we can't drill these holes and build these mines fast enough. So we're in a good spot. I think this is a good time for that rotation, out of these, big tech companies into raw material resource companies.
Well, speaking of the need for metals going forward, I think copper. I think most people who are in the know would say that copper is something that is facing a real undersupply. And you've got at the Thorn project a little bit of copper lying around.
Well, that's the thing, and I don't. I know people don't appreciate the scale and scope of this thing. It's hard to wrap your head around that kind of when you're talking 80-kilometer trends and stuff like that. It's hard to put it in perspective. But yeah, it's a dominant copper system we're learning, but also a lot of gold. I would call it a copper gold trend, but we do get some silver in there. We've hit some really high silver, a little bit of lead zinc probably as well, but it's mainly a copper gold belt. And that's what we've learned over the last few years, that we're actually dealing with a multiple phase porphyry belt has lasted a very long period of time, from Triassic to Eocene period. So we're seeing these multiple events over long periods of time. So that's a good thing. when you have multiple shots at that and multiple pulses of mineralizing events coming through. So it's just going to take time, and you're right. Copper is, I mean, they're calling for a major deficit in the next 3 years. Short term, it looks pretty good, but not too far out, we're heading into a major deficit, and you can't just flip the switch and turn on a copper mine.
Right.
What I've learned is the bigger they are, the longer they take to build. So there is something to be said for small, high grade deposits, get them up and running, getting some cash flow, getting those things rolling. And I think the Red Chris miner is a good example. With Imperial Metals, they could have built a much larger pit design because it's a big deposit, and they decided to start off with a smaller one to get the cash flow going, and it's been successful for them. And now they're going block cave with Newcrest in there, which are probably one of the best block cave miners in the world, going underground block cave at Red Chris, big scale thing. So that's good to see in the camp, and we're certainly keeping an eye on that because we kind of envision similar things happening at Thornton.
I know that environmentally, going in smaller rather than just blowing the side off a mountain, it's a lot easier to keep things reasonably green. A lot of our investors at Equity.Guru are younger investors, and traditionally might have shied away from mining. But can you explain a little bit about how the industry's changed and how what you're planning to do might be actually not as pillaging as it has been in the past?
Well, yeah, I think the industry has changed in how we do business and how we mine these things, and there is a greater focus on environmental concerns and corporate governance and the social license to operate. So, and we take those things seriously as well. And you have to, you've got to do the right things. You've got to do the engineering on the environmental side. And like I said earlier, the block cave mining is really the future of big scale mining, where you have less waste rock sitting on the surface for that potential dam failure that nobody wants. Mm-hmm. So trying to mitigate those by not having as much material on surface. There's lots of new technologies coming out as well, and I think the industry has been a bit slow to adopting some of those, but we are starting to see things happen on that side, like a part of the electrification. We're seeing more electrification, less fuel being burned on sites, and those sorts of things. So I think the future of mining is very interesting. There's some new technologies that will really help out with this environmental push, I think, as well.
Now, there are a lot of mining explorers out there that are maybe a name only, that do a lot of raising money, stick a few drills in the ground, don't spoil a good story, continue. Generally, my filter on those is who's involved with the company. And I see that in terms of institutions and large investors, that Brixton has a bit of an all-star lineup of big names. Could you walk us through some of those?
Sure. Well, I just started. The largest shareholder on the roster is Eric Sprott. And I think everybody in the mining business knows a billionaire. Eric Sprott is invested in a lot of mining space and made a lot of money in this space. He's, I think he's just under 10% shareholder at the moment. And then we piqued the interest of Robert Friedland last year with our a deal with HPX on our Hog Heaven project. So he came in as a shareholder as well, which is Robert Friedland's share position, and the Hog Heaven joint venture is now part of Ivanhoe Electric, which is basically the new U.S. copper-focused mining platform. So that's pretty exciting to have them involved. And then, of course, Rob McEwen has been a longtime shareholder of the company, and Crescat Capital recently came in as well, and they've been, the activist shareholder. It's good to see them out talking about the opportunities that they're getting behind. So we feel we have a really strong shareholder base, and we've had great liquidity in the company. If you looked over the last year, I think we traded close to 170 million shares in 2021. Almost our entire float. I mean, we've got more shares out now because we did a pretty large financing last year. Mm-hmm. But we're well financed for for 2022, basically we're fully funded for the year, which, we've never had one drill turning at Thorn all season. We're going to have 2 drills turning all season. So big drill program planned, and everybody's chomping at the bit to get in there early. So that's the focus. And Thorn has taken the center stage for us. That's where our biggest budget is for the year, and we'll see what we can do this summer. So we'll definitely have a lot of news flow coming out of that project. And plus the Ivanhoe Electric Group is planning to be drilling at Hog Heaven. So we've got some interesting dynamics going on with drilling on that project, which we're looking forward to some big results there. So it should be an exciting season for us once we get the drills turning.
So you've got a monster large property. You've got monster partners and investors. You're in a space that realistically should be surging right now. But you've only got a $44 million market cap. That seems to me to be either a screaming bargain or a red flag. Which would you say?
Well, it's pretty obvious. It's a screaming bargain. We're still, put it this way, 2015 seems like a lifetime ago, but I'd say we're still closer to the bottom of the market. We still have so much in front of us to get back up, to the highs really in the sector as the sector goes. So, it's going to come down to the drill bit. I think we just need to continue to plow forward and do what we do. And I think the proof will be in the drilling. And for investors that want exposure to gold and copper, and getting in early, I think there's still an opportunity to get in early here. We haven't had the big lift yet, and again, that's gonna come out of the drill bit. We'll do what we can to make that happen. So
literally, it could come at any time that you receive some results in the morning that can catapult things. I note that back in September, your stock went from 12 cents to like 24 cents in 2 months. There's ups and downs, but for an early stage mining explorer, that's a pretty good swing. That's almost a trade opportunity.
Well, absolutely. And, go back to like 2016, we went from 10 cents to $1.10 on no news, on just the market turning on. And I think with good results, I think, again, we're looking to build a multi-billion-dollar company here, and a 44 million market cap seems like a big spread, and it is. And but that's the business we're in. You can go from, a good example is Great Bear is probably the most recent success story in the gold space. Went from 10 cents to a $30 takeout in 4 years. That doesn't happen every day, and it doesn't happen every cycle necessarily, but those are the kind of opportunities. That's probably why a lot of investors like the space. There's big torque to the upside. There's a lot of companies out there with potential, so it's tough as an investor to find those diamonds in the rough. But I think Brixton is one of those diamonds in the rough that we're in the process of unlocking that potential. And again, it'll come out of the drill bit, but that's the opportunity that we see in front of us.
Got it. So you guys are reasonably well cashed up. You've got your drill program paid for, as you mentioned. What will the casual investor be looking for over the next 6 months to give them the signal that the train is starting to leave the station on this one?
Well, I mean, you'll see it on the back of our initial few holes coming out, whether it's the market likes it or doesn't like it. I think it could take us a season here. My concern is the timeline. The last year or two, probably likely a result of COVID. The turnarounds for assay labs to get assays, normally it was about a 3-week process. You submit your batch of samples to the lab, and you get your results in 3 weeks, and you got something to talk about. Where now we're waiting 2 to maybe 5 months, I've heard in some cases. We don't know what it has in store for us this year, but we sure hope that, and this is just as an industry in a whole, not just us, the whole sector has this problem.
Right.
So if we can get those turnarounds quicker than they've had in the last few years, back to some normal turnarounds, then we could be looking at a pretty interesting summer. So it's those drill results that are going to drive it this summer. Just keep an eye on that, and And you'll see based on the volume of, interest we have in the stock.
There's nothing worse as a mining investor than thinking, I've probably got a little time before this one really takes off, and then seeing the next day great results posted that you missed.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, look, thanks for this, Gary. This has been great. And we'll touch base with you again in a little bit and see how progress is going. One question I usually throw in just before we end.
Mm-hmm.
You obviously look at a lot of other public companies in your space and otherwise. Is there one that you spotted in the wild that you thought, I like what these guys are doing?
Well, they haven't gotten taken out, you mean?
That haven't been taken out.
Well, Great Bear is a good story. I like what those guys are doing. Obviously, the classic success story for the space. Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, there's a lot of companies out there. Yeah, I usually put the money into my companies that I'm building. So I've got one. I've got one for you. It's called Gold 79 Mines.
Yeah.
Limited. Ticker is AUU. A Nevada, Arizona-based gold company, sub 10 million market cap. Makes Brixton look big. But I have a meaningful share position in that company and an executive chairman. So that's one to watch because Southwest Gold Explorer, it's a good place to be and good assets. So that's a good opportunity there.
You're officially on my list. Thanks, man. I appreciate your time. I'll let you get back out there and keep plugging those drills in.
All right. Good chatting there, Chris. Take care.